The 882nd meeting of the Board of Directors of MSAD 27.
Oh, the front door is not, it's not down.
Are they packing?
It's a board member.
Who?
Board member.
We'll have to make sure the doors are unlocked, and if we can make sure of that.
Oh, there's Joby. Door's locked.
Yeah, he just texted me.
I just Toby.
I promise we just locked it.
Is there a cover sheet for the,
This invite only?
oh,
Hello.
got it.
What's that?
There's more in the front doors that told me you'd be among the fees going down. Doors locked.
If it was me, it'd be over by now.
Called the door.
Should I take it? And we'll just go and pick. Keith Johnbro. Here. Kurt Susi.
Here.
Jacob Terrio.
Here.
Barry Ouellette.
Here.
Gary Sibley.
Here.
Sarah Ashley.
Here.
And I know Toby is here, he's just not in.
Adjustments to the agenda.
You do have adjustments to the agenda. Your agenda has all the adjustments. I sent you all an email earlier apologizing, but we've had interviews and transfers and vacancies over the past 48 hours that have caused quite a bit of things to happen. So you'll see all of the adjustments listed, and they were also included in your board notes, and they're also included throughout the agenda. So should be able to roll with it.
No public participation. Move to approval of the minutes for the 881st meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion?
Sarah and Kurt.
All in favor? Unanimous. Approval of financial statements for June 2020.
We'll have to table the June financials or not.
Superintendent's report.
First thing I have under superintendent is the Corona relief funds update. We had a message last Friday from the department explaining to us that Governor Mills had passed a coronavirus relief fund, the fund they're calling CRF, 165 million statewide. The allocations for each district have been distributed by different factors. So there is a base factor, then it goes through special education, ELL learners, disadvantaged, homeless, substitute, software, technology, PPE. So you can see the list of different factors for the CRF funds. The funds need to be spent in this calendar year. In fact, we are on a timeline to have to pass our submit our application by the end of this month. And they're going to review those applications, and then mid-September they may roll out a reallocation based on what the districts have applied for to spend. Our district's allocation for CRF funds is $709,306, and these funds are specific to anything that has risen as a cost because of the coronavirus. We can go as far back as March 1st in applying for whatever cost we have. So we know that we had some transportation costs, perhaps with the school lunch deliveries. If it wasn't fully funded, we can go back that far and pay the fuel costs if they weren't fully covered in our reimbursement. So things like that we can backdate. We cannot fund anything that is in our regular budget from last year or this year. So anything we budgeted for, any positions we budgeted for, we can't use the CRF funds for that. That's above and beyond what we got, I announced to you last meeting or 2 meetings ago for our CARES fund, which now they're calling the ESSR funds, which we have $193,607. The department wants us to work on CRF funds first, spend those because those dry out on December 31st. And then the CARES funds, the ESSR funds, we actually have for another calendar year. So these funds are definitely going to be helpful. With these funds, CRF funds, our district has to agree to the 6 recommendations by the State Department for opening up schools safely. So when we go through the application, we have to check the 6 boxes, and those 6 things will be in the plan that I present to you in a few minutes. Any questions on CRF funds? We've already started a spreadsheet of things that we've already spent on PPE and safety things, water fountain dispensers, all kinds of things like that. And then we're going to work on some other things. As we start to collect those, we'll try to share with you every meeting, what our CRF targets are, so that you guys have an idea of what we're using those funds for. Later, you'll also hear me recommend an additional nurse that was brought up at our last meeting. We intend to use CRF funds for that additional nurse and some other positions as well that we think are going to be essential. Any questions on that? I'll move to revenue forecasting information. Governor Mills announced on Wednesday that, and this was Wednesday of last week, not today, that the Revenue Forecasting Committee projected state general fund revenues will decrease by $524 million in this fiscal year for the state of Maine. Further decreases will happen in subsequent years. So that is not a good picture, but we did expect it. We've been talking about, that revenue forecasting and what it's going to mean for all of the different departments for Maine, but especially schools that impact us. There's no further guidance on that. It's just an announcement, and the governors seem to be united for the most part on pressing the federal government to continue to provide more relief so that these revenue shortfalls aren't going to impact local school districts, local businesses, local industries, and so on and so forth. So we'll try to keep you updated as we know, but right now $524 million is the target this year, although there was a carry forward in the governor's budget of $106 million, so the net difference is going to be about $418 million shortfall is what they're projecting in this year. Any questions on that? Valley Unified updates. I asked Scott Brown for an update. I actually got in contact with Scott Brown yesterday. He called me at the end of the business day. I was able to question him on a conversation he said he was going to have with the commissioner. He did talk with the commissioner 2 weeks ago, said he was meeting with her again today. In their conversations, they discussed our project briefly, and he wanted to press upon her the importance of her getting up here to speak with us. She did apologize, as Scott said, that she does want to get up here and has every intention to get here, just hasn't come around to finalizing her schedule. So Scott said he would speak to her again today, and hopefully we would find out soon if she would free up some time. I know things are very busy for the commissioner right now as schools gear up to start up, but I think she does want to come up here and speak to us. I also questioned Scott on the State Board of Education. There is an agenda that was posted yesterday or the day before, and under the School Construction Committee agenda, there is the Integrated Consolidated 9 through 16 project as an agenda item. I asked him if they're going to be speaking about our project. He said no, they're going to be speaking about the Holton project, specific to Southern Aroostook dropping out, or one of the towns dropping out of that. I can't remember which community it was. was. But it was not discussions about Valley Unified. He says Valley Unified has purposely not been on the agenda because they want to wait and have information to share with the state board specific to our talks about RSUs and whether or not we're going to move in that direction. I did update Scott that we have a think tank meeting specific for those conversations that are set up, and I hope that he's conveying that to the commissioner, that they see that we're trying to get some momentum going about that. That's all that Scott shared with me, and that's all that I shared with him.
I think we just want to go right into think tank. That's the next item.
That's the next item.
Yeah.
Good segue.
Yeah, good second.
Okay. Think tank, we were originally scheduled for Tuesday, yesterday. Toby did suggest that since the other boards weren't going to be meeting, we weren't going to be meeting, 33 hasn't met, that we should reschedule. I reached out to the think tank folks and they all agreed, so we're going to be meeting next Monday at 5:30. We were supposed to have a school board meeting that Monday. We had changed it back to August 10. I'm going to propose that since it's only a week away that we push that back to its original date, so we'll talk about that later. But we will be having our think tank on Monday. I did bring this same agenda item up to the Madawaska School Committee meeting on this past Monday, let them talk about their concerns, and Mr. Kent did advocate for the Madawaska School Committee that he hopes that we have cooperation moving forward. They did speak specifically to the site, that they hope that the site selection is not going to be something that we're dwelling on. I did share with them that your concerns, one big concern that you guys are going to bring to the think tank, and you already have, is going to be specific to the representation on that board. Yes, for the RSU, but you also do have some concerns right now with the representation on the Valley Unified board. So I did share that with them as well. As I mentioned to them, I think this is a good time to share with Gary and Toby what is it specific that you want them to bring to the table when they go represent you next Monday.
I'm at the point where I don't know if the think tank is fruitful. We made, I think, pretty clear indications of what we were looking for from our partners, and it didn't make it on an agenda for a few meetings. It was never discussed, and when they did discuss it, I watched Madawaska's meeting. I mean, it's clear they have no intention of making any concessions. That the only way we're moving forward is to do everything they want. I don't see how this relationship is tenable at this point, where we're in a situation where our partners are saying, we're not going to do anything that you want. We're not going to discuss your concerns. We're going to ridicule you for having them, and we're going to mock your ability to represent your communities. Jake and Gary.
I believe that Toby's right on. I think that we're wasting our time on the path that we're on now with the two other parties.
Kurt?
It just sounds like, I think the majority of the membership is not in support of the proposed site. And at some point, rather than waste time with this whole notion of the think tank, I think that should be resolved. And I think that at some point, as a board, we make a decision as to where do we go. Because I think we're just spinning our wheels, and unless we take a more affirmative position, more assertive position, we're wasting our time. I think it just needs to go down on record that either we're going to back this project up and whatever, and if we're not willing to do that, then let's call it a spade a spade. in terms of the, the Valley Unified meeting that you guys had 2 weeks ago, I think was a clear indication as to what's going to happen. And I looked at that vote, and it was a 6-3 vote, and the 6 people were from the other two sites, the other 2 schools, and the 3 other votes came from here. For me, that was like an eye-awakening scenario, and for me, it speaks to what is going to happen in the future unless something is done. And if they're not willing to do anything, then I think we just need to decide that it's not going to happen. The relationship is not going to happen. That's my take.
Keith?
Well, I think the message that we got at the straw poll is certainly concerning when we only have half of our straw poll people voting in favor and half voting against. We really don't have clear support from the community yet. I think if we can get increased representation on both boards, that would go a long ways towards moving this project forward. But until we gain a little traction based on our numbers, our population of who and what we represent in our communities, and what we're going to contribute fiscally to this Valley Unified School District and the new school, I don't see this as moving forward until we get increased representation on both boards, proportionate to what we represent.
That would have to be something that happens in the RSU formation. That's part of the process that is in the law.
Well, I think there's a few things that have come to light with the Valley Unified Board as well. And fiscally speaking, I'm just a little bit concerned of what the Valley Unified Board can and cannot do. And they might have a little bit too much say on what they could do, and we would be left with you know what I'm getting at.
To that point, we were talking about the bonding a couple of meetings ago, and that's really frightening. So when we signed on to Valley Unified, all of our member towns would have had to sign off on bonds. It would have signed off on bonds the old-fashioned way, where us City 27 would have done it, Branchville would have done it, and 33 would have done it. But then the law was changed last June, and it's really ambiguous now how that could be done. So Valley Unified could determine how bonding is done itself by a 2/3 vote, which would mean if Valley Unified decided that the current membership of Valley Unified would decide whether or not they could bond by 2/3 vote, that could mean Valley Unified could borrow as much, well, up to a certain point, and it would be a 6-3 vote, like Kerr said. And we would be sitting there paying 55% of the bill today, and maybe more tomorrow, and we would get outvoted every time. I mean, I can't, it kind of goes to this uncertainty going forward, where just when we think we know what's going to happen, it changes. And that's something that Mr. Dugal said as well. I mean, Madawaska's upset about going from 9 to 12 to 7 to 12. That's a concern of his, and he said at the Madawaska meeting, it feels like things are always moving. Like as soon as we think we know what's happening, it's changed. And I think we can all relate to that. And the bonding issue, I think, is a big deal. I mean, and the fact that it's still in there, and it's frightening. I mean, Gary and I consulted with the attorney on that particular issue, and he said right now it's so ambiguous that anything could happen and it would pass muster. And it would be basically open for litigation if somebody tried to bond at that point with that current language. So I'm concerned. I think we're going down a road, and I don't get the sense that, and I understand, Ben, you're saying that the RSU is going to resolve this, but it doesn't resolve the underlying issues of Valley Unified.
It does not.
And our partners are unwilling to make changes in Valley Unified. I think we need to signal to them that we need to reevaluate our relationship with Valley Unified. I think that's where I am.
What's the best way to do that?
Well, I think they're doing it right now. I think we should have our attorney draft a letter to Valley Unified, so it's put up, because I don't get to decide what's on the agendas at Valley Unified anymore. So it's gonna be up to the chair to put that on there, but I think we send a letter from our board to Valley Unified asking that we address this, CC all of the pertinent entities, board, Department of Education, let them know this is happening, and go from there. What do you guys think?
Jake, what do you got thoughts?
I think the think tank isn't moving forward as much as we thought it would, and I agree with Toby's assessments. I think we got to the point where SAD 27 has to publicly state where we stand on these issues associated with Valley Unified.
I feel like we keep making new committees that give us the same result, that we just aren't heard or heard, and it doesn't really matter. I think at the straw poll, I think the site failed, and I think we voted on how, I mean, nowhere is a tie vote of passing, and how we voted on how to tally the vote, and it says, and I remember we were nervous about it because we talked about it at a couple different meetings about if one district voted it down, that site or whatever was in question was done. It didn't mean the project was done, it means that site is done. In my mind, that site is done. And this is one of those things about the rules changing, like this is what we decided and now we're saying, well, that maybe we can decide that that's not the case, and it's done. And I think the idealist in me, the person who's the optimist, says, you know, if we went at this, maybe we try it again with another site. We take the matrix and we reapply it, or we do whatever. I don't think it matters, because I agree with Kerr's assessment of, we saw the vote for the chairman. Toby came up, the other two split their votes, it died. They picked someone from somewhere else, all of them are all for it, and we're against it. It just keeps happening over and over and over in different venues. And I feel like we're wasting time and energy and money, and I'm kind of done with it.
So do we skip the think tank meeting and go right to drafting a letter to Valley Unified?
I would suggest we just draft the letter as soon as possible, and I mean, we can, yeah, I don't care. What do you think?
They've had how many weeks to get together on their own? Or they could have said, Ben, we need an emergency meeting or whatever like we do, and let's talk about this, because what's the importance of it? And they haven't chosen to do so. And we have stressed the importance of what we want to do as a board associated with the think tank, Valley Unified, and I don't think it's been reciprocal to our needs.
Well, and I worry too, because, you know, the idea from Scott Brown is that if we don't do an RSU, the project doesn't move forward. And it seems to me, if there was so much support from those other districts that we needed to just like hurry up. Remember? You wanted to review the engineer's package. Oh, come on, Jake, stop being Jake. Hurry it up, hurry it up. And then, why are you always disagreeing with us? I mean, we were getting that all the time. And now the state has come in and said, you need to form an RSU. And this is important if you want to move forward. And the result, and the reaction has been, I suspect they think they're going to get what they want no matter what we do. And that's the feeling I get, is that we're at an impasse because they believe that it's going to continue going regardless of what we say. And to date, that's exactly how it's been. So I have no reason to believe it's going to change, and I have no reason, I see why they would feel that way. And just as a minor aside, I mean, at the last, for the record, I am no longer, I'm happy that I'm no longer the chair. I didn't even really, when they asked me if I wanted it, I was ambiguous. But I was appointed to that position in September of last year and removed from it in July of this year, on a year-long position. I mean, how, I don't know how that happened. But it suggests to me, once again, that it doesn't really matter where we are. I mean, I was elected in September 2019. and started my term in October, and we were told that we need to elect a new chairperson in July.
And that's because the policy says the first meeting of the school year.
But we haven't approved the policy yet. We only did a first read. There's no policy. We did the first read at the same meeting. That's all we accomplished. We did the first read and we elected a new chair. I don't care that I'm not the chair, but I do care that we don't have rules, and when we do have them, we only follow them intermittently.
This is like when we said there's an issue with having administrators on the VU board, but that only applies to the meetings after this one, in which they can vote.
Yeah. It feels so slippery. And I'm not.
I believe that if they want to go and have the think tank meeting, they ought to have it. I think that they need to understand that we will not be playing if we don't have at least 50-some% of the vote. Absolutely not, because we can't have the 6-3 anytime. It was 6-3 when we asked just to slow the thing down. It was 6-3 then. We just want to slow it down, take our time, and look at this again. 6-3. That's what's going to happen forever and ever. That's why we need to bail, take our ball, and go home.
So,
Yeah.
you want Toby and I to get together? I mean, it's pretty clear on what everyone's feelings are, and I think we're all on the same page. You want Toby and I to get together with the attorney and draft a letter to Valley Unified stating our position and where we're at right now?
Yes.
Do we need a motion for that, or?
We have a subcommittee.
Pardon?
Oh,
We
your
have a
subcommittee.
subcommittee.
All right. Okay, thank you.
The doors were locked. Anyone that came in late, does anyone want to speak? Anyone good? Okay. Items of business, old business.
Okay. We'd like to present an updated reintegration plan at this time. Before I do, I need to tell you all that this has been the hardest work that I think any of us have had to do so far to date in our profession. I don't want to speak for Lucy or Giselle or Peter or anyone in this room, but I think if this is a snapshot of how things are going to be, we're going to need a lot of support this year from each other, and we're going to need to support our staff a lot this year. We're going to need to support our families a lot this year. We're really going to need to band together. This is not easy. And the plan that I will present to you tonight is not perfect. You will still have 1,000 questions, as will every parent, as will every student, and there's no plan in the world that can prepare us for everything. That being said, I'm extremely proud of the plan we put together. I think it's thoughtful, and I hope that you think so as well. I gave you a printed copy, which you have in front of you. I will also be displaying the plan on the large screen. And I start with a web page that has been designed for school reintegration. This web page will be accessible at www.vuesc.org, so Valley Unified Education Center. And it's a housing place for all of our resources for school reintegration. And it is highlighted by our reintegration guide, which is our plan that we're going to go over tonight. There is the return to classroom instruction framework from the state of Maine that our plan was based off of. There is the American Academy of Pediatrics reopening guide, which was also used as a tool to help create our plan, and the CDC school and child care resources links as well. We put out a letter to the families and the staff 2 weeks ago, which had FAQ sections so that they could ask questions. These links go to those FAQs so that you can see the questions that have been asked, and Peter and Sharon have done a wonderful job keeping up with answering the questions as they come in and updating them as we know more. So this is a wonderful resource as well for the families to have and for our staff to have. And it's specific to all the different sections of our guide, so physical health, of social, emotional, behavioral, mental health, academic learning, expectations for hybrid and remote learning, and then other considerations. We have our outline that we presented to you last meeting, which is essentially our slideshow. That's there as well. We have our school enrollment forms that are going to be housed here. And what I mean by school enrollment forms is upon approval of this plan, we will send out a message to the families with this plan, with this website, and we're going to ask every family to essentially re-enroll their kids in school based on whether or not their kids are going to be remote learners when school starts, or if they're going to be here in school. So there are some notes that parents will have to read. It's talking about making sure they review the guide before they make a decision. We're asking them to make a commitment for about a quarter of the year, and that's not a hard fast. It has to be a quarter of the year, especially if a student starts in school and then things change and they want to go remotely. We're going to be very flexible with that. But what we don't want is a kid starting remotely and then next week, no, I want to go back to school, and the next week, no, I want to go back remote. We have to have some kind of commitments, because to staff this and to figure it out is going to be really, really hard to figure out. We want to make sure that the children, there's a form filled out for every child, and that there's no duplicates. And we don't want kids to fill out the forms, we want parents to. So we're just collecting some basic information, email. We're collecting the name of the parent, the address, phone number. The reason we need this information is we want to update all of our emergency alert systems, which gives you the phone call, the email, and the text. We want to make sure we have all that. We want to make sure their residence information is up to date for busing reasons. We ask the name of the child, the grade level of the child, and then we ask the statement. We ask them to choose what they're going to be doing this fall. Are they going to be in classroom, following all the guidelines? Are they going to be in remote learning, following all of the expectations for remote learning? Or are parents going to opt to homeschool, because we know they have the right to do that, and some have been vocal about possibly choosing that as well. If a parent chooses that their children will be in school, we're asking them about transportation. Are they going to be using the bus or not? It's going to be very important that we have this, because we found out yesterday that we had to dial back, and now the direction from the state is one child per seat. Peter, how many seats on a bus?
24.
How many?
24 or 26, depending if it's a 72 or a 77 passenger.
24 or 26 seats. That's what we can transport on a bus. So we're going to be looking at, if there's a lot of kids needing transportation, we're going to be doing a lot of bus runs. We're not telling parents, please bring in your children, but I think there's going to be a lot of parents opting to bring in their children based on the last survey that we put out that said so. We're going to remind parents that if their children are in classrooms, face masks are mandatory per the department guidelines. Face shields can be used with a doctor's note. If there's no doctor's note, it must be a face mask, a face covering, and that's straight out of what the DOE is requiring of us to open schools safely and to access our CRF funds. There will be children and staff members who cannot wear these. They have breathing conditions that do not allow that. We're encouraging them to get that doctor's note. We will supply the face masks if families don't have them. We will supply the face shields if families don't have them. We're not asking them to do that themselves. So the family has to make sure that they understand that. We're asking if their children are going to need some additional counselor or social work services based on their experiences so far, yes or no. And then we're asking the family if they need a thermometer to help with their daily monitoring. One of the requirements is going to be self-screening before you come to school. And part of that self-screening process is taking a daily temperature check. Northern Maine Medical Center we've given the green light from Northern Maine Medical Center. They're actually going to supply the thermometers for us once we figure out how to get the thermometers we need. So that's going to be something as well that they have to answer. Those are the only questions we're asking from families with respect to kids coming back in school, because that's the most essential information. Who's coming back? Do you need a bus? Are you realize you're going to wear a face mask? And do you have what you need for supports and to be able to take that daily screening? If a family instead chooses that their child will be in remote learning, they are not coming to school in class, we're asking them if they need the technology device that's required. We're asking them if they have the sufficient technology support. If a family answers no to this, we're going to be calling them and saying, you understand that you want to do remote learning, but you don't have the internet that can support it. That is an impossible task to do. And we'll have those conversations at that time, because remote learning is going to be very, very specific this time and not emergency learning like it was in the spring. The next question alludes to that. Did you review the learning core values matrix in the plan with the expectations of students in the fall? Those expectations are very clear, and they're developed just like the expectations when they're in school according to the core values. And it's specific to technology use, communication, academics, social and soft skills. No more PJs during class time on Zoom. I mean, that's not something that would happen in class. It's not something that's happening here. And you're going to follow your schedule. If you're a high school learner, you're going to tune into your classes at your regular class time. So these are all things that the families need to realize when they're choosing remote learning. It's not what you were doing in March and April, although we did a great job. It's going to be a lot more specific for student success, because we want the kids in classroom and the kids remotely to have the same outcomes as best that we can. Again, it's not going to be perfect, but that is the expectation we have. And they're answering that. And then, do they need the social emotional supports? Because we still have to support those remote learners at home as well. If they are not opting either one, the only other choice is to enroll your child in homeschooling. Taking the year off is not an option. I've heard that. We're going to just take the year off. That's called truancy. You can't take the year off. You have to go to school, or you have to provide homeschooling services. So if they do choose homeschooling, we are giving them the information on how to do homeschooling. So you go to the department and enroll there as well. I hope that families are not going to choose homeschooling, especially if they weren't interested in homeschooling before. However, if they're interested in that, they think they can do that well, we're going to support them. The school is still a resource to homeschool families. But we feel that with remote learning and in-classroom learning, we're providing options that can support those students. And then the website also has up-to-date information and news from our blog sites as well. Any questions about the website before I get into the plan? All right. I'm going to try to go through this quite quickly, guys, but stop me if you're like, whoa, you know, I don't understand what this section is about.
Ben, is there anything different from this plan that you're going to show us to the one that you emailed us?
The only thing that's changed, Keith, is the transportation. So what I shared with you guys earlier, the transportation now says 1 student per seat, and the version I gave you guys was 2 chairs per seat. I can skip going over the entire thing if you guys have already previewed it. I know I shared it with you on Monday. If you have specific questions that you want to ask, we can just go right to the areas that you need to know more about. what say you?
I've read through it, I'm good.
Yeah.
So mine.
Can't believe it's that long.
I mean, really though, I mean, seriously, I mean, just to echo what you said, I mean, kudos to the people who put this thing together. I mean, it's extremely well out.
We were shared a copy of a document from another school downstate. It was a 10-page document. It was well done, but I felt I had so many questions after that. And not necessarily that more information is always better, but there's going to be so many people that are on both sides of the spectrum of this issue here, that we need to make them understand that no matter where you fall on that spectrum of scared to death to allow your children to come to school, or I can't wait, they better be going, yesterday, we have to answer the questions for all those folks. So we tried to humanize as many of the parts of this. Face mask, we know that's a huge issue. So we start off in our face mask section saying, we understand this is an issue. Nobody likes this. Nobody likes this. It's driving me crazy right now. But in order for us to have everyone following the same guidelines and feeling safe, we have to make sure that we're trying to provide that level of security while making people understand that, yes, your voice and choice is important, but we'll provide you those moments when we can. So face masks, there's going to be training for teachers about providing face mask breaks. There's no way a kid can wear this for 7.25 hours a day, or however long school is. There's no way. So we're going to have face mask breaks that are going to be developed throughout the day. We're going to encourage outside, being outside as much as we can during the school day, especially while the weather is nice. We've had some teachers advocate just today because Holton, had their news presentation that they have shorter days. Our days are not going to be shorter by the bell schedule, but there's going to be a lot less academics going on because we have so many other things to talk about and do. Hand hygiene, social emotional learning, face mask breaks. We're going to have staggered lunch shifts all day long that we need to figure out. And I think a shortened day now, at this point, we might have to come recommend that to you guys later based on what's happening. But I think right now we need to maximize on the education because we had less of it last spring. So the more we can get now, we truly feel is an advantage to our students. We need to try to return back to normal as quickly as possible and try to recapture some of this learning. The only thing that I want to discuss with you, and we can kind of wrap it up on the same thing, because I know the next item is the school calendar. In the school calendar, we are proposing that we add an additional workshop day for the teachers at the beginning of the week. So the original calendar that you've approved had the teacher starting on Tuesday of the week, so the high school teacher starting on Tuesday, and then the elementary teacher starting on Tuesday. We're proposing they start on Monday, so we remove the January 4 workshop and plug into the beginning of school because we have some social emotional discussions and training that we need to do with our teachers that they didn't have in June that are going to be so essential. Aside from the things that the principals need to work with them that we normally do on the regular start of the school year and the district-wide things, we really felt that that day was essential to get those 3 days and really roll out a good plan. We also wanted to take advantage of half of our student population leaving on December 21 for harvest, and we felt that would be a good time to bring back pre-K. So delay pre-K for 2 weeks because our kindergartners are going to need so many supports, and we feel by having Miss Becca and Miss Andrea working with our kindergarten teachers, they're the friendly face to those little ones. Those are the teachers that they last saw. Having them working with the kindergarten teachers, and then that would allow the kindergarten teachers to go help out with the first grade in pockets so that they could have closure with their kids from last year. We really feel that it's important that we have kind of like a teacher step up. We're not bringing the kids back to their regular grade level, but we're going to have that grade level teacher go work with the next grade that those kids were theirs when school ended on March 13th. So that, in order for that to work, we really feel that the delay to the pre-K year needs to happen, and they would start on September 21. By then, we will have had so many adjustments, and we don't want an adjustment period with 4-year-olds. That's going to be a really, it's going to be a real trying time. The 4-year-olds are the only ones that the masks are not required. If they're 4 pre-K, it's a recommendation. So we're gonna use pre-K as a face mask training time, where we get to teach them about the face masks and how to use them, and it's going to be a lot of work. I told the administrators, they're going to tell their teachers, we're going to be dealing with face masks and face shields. That's going to be the new bullying. It's going to be the new big thing for everyone, and we know that, and it's going to be really hard. But we feel that if we support each other and we work together, we can do this. Those are the only changes in the calendar. So when considering the calendar, note that, and because January 4 is now a regular student day, we are able to put the last day of school back to the 16th instead of the 17th, because we recaptured an extra student day on the 4th of January. Anywhere in the plan you want me to go to and discuss further?
I have about.
Sarah has like 15 questions.
I have 2 pages.
Okay.
I think I want to start with this first. So then, I think it's all about how do you project yourselves when we're dealing with mask wearing, and your statement saying this drives me crazy. I think that's the wrong way to put it out there. So hearing, and we should be top down, right? So I understand it's annoying. Like, I'll be teaching a class, I'm going to wear this for 2 hours, so it won't be fun for me.
Right.
However, I think you cannot have any teachers, any administrators having that negativity associated with mask wearing. And so if you can do anything when you're doing the social well-being teaching and talking with your staff, you have to stay away from that as much as possible.
Oh, absolutely. It's just like wearing a
Yeah.
seatbelt, right? Sometimes you're like, oh, but you do it because you know it's protecting you. It's the same thing with this. I'm doing it because I know it protects you. So you're right, absolutely. We definitely have to teach not only the health benefits, but we do have to humanize a little bit and say, guys, I know it's uncomfortable, I know it's hard. We'll have a mask break in 30 minutes. So we're going to have to work with kids a lot with those conversations. Yeah. Absolutely.
Thanks.
Sarah?
You ready?
Yes.
So the governor extended the emergency. Today?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Larry. Does that affect any of this?
The only thing that it affects us is we cannot have gatherings of 50 or more. So when our principals are looking at lunchtime, when they're looking at any gathering times, there can never be 50 or more in one area.
What does that mean for RISE?
That means that RISE is going to have to close one of the sections off and have separate cohorts. But it all depends on numbers. Like, are all the kids coming back? So we have to have the numbers to be able to make that determination.
What's that survey do?
We're gonna push it out tomorrow, or the first thing, and the responses are gonna roll in throughout the next few days and the weekend. I think we said in the survey, I think we put August 12 is what we were looking for, but we're gonna have to start calling and saying, hey, you didn't answer. Can you answer? Can you answer? So that we have the information. Sarah?
Can you, what is it, I fully agree with you on the support and supporting our teachers, and seeing what the teachers went through last spring is awful, and I don't want a full year of that. I am terrified of teacher burnout. Can you, and I know it's different in the different buildings, can you tell us what the teacher work day is going to look like?
It's going to look different at the elementary level than the middle high school level. The elementary level, we are going to, of course, wait for our survey data to come in. But we're going to have remote kids, and we're going to have live in class kids. They're both going to need teachers. At the elementary level, a teacher cannot do both. So I can't expect Tamar to manage remote learners and her in-classroom learners at the same. It's not possible for littles like that. because the remote learners need so much support. It's not like a middle high school kid where they can manage the technology, they can follow a schedule, they need those supports. So we're going to work with the teachers on, once we find out how many students are remote, how many students are in classroom, and then assigning teachers to one or the other. That may mean that a classroom teacher may not necessarily be a second grade teacher with only second grade learners, because we don't know what the number is. So you might have some second, third grade learners inside your classroom, and your remote learners might be second, third, fourth graders, you know. We're going to try to keep it as equitable as possible, but it was important to us to make sure that our elementary teachers are not managing both at the same time. For our middle high school teachers, Mr. Coletta and his staff have worked on reducing the class schedule from 6 classes a day to 3 and 1 intervention period. So with 3 class periods a day of instruction, we feel that a remote learner can tune into class during the instruction period, and then all students, you know, have their required work. Once the teacher teaches, so if you have an 80-minute block, you're probably teaching for 20 minutes of that block, and then the rest is work and support and those types of things. We are going to secure some technology with a camera device where when a class starts, just like our meeting here, the teacher is starting a Zoom meeting, recording it, and then the remote learners are in class during that time. What's going to be very tricky is, and we're in a better position here at CHS where we have multiple teachers that teach multiple subjects, but what happens if we have a remote teacher who has a doctor's note that they can't come into school, yet they have kids that have a live classroom that need them, right? So, you know, teacher A is teaching from home, the kids are, some are remote, some are in classroom. We're going to have an ed tech in that classroom monitoring the live kids while the teacher is teaching from the remote location. So that's how we're trying to start. We think that it's doable at the middle high school level, especially if the families are, if they're saying they're going to follow those core values. Those core values say you must attend class on time. You know, it doesn't matter if you're at home, you're attending class. You're not working, you know, like you were, some were when we did this before. It's not going to be perfect, but that's how we're approaching it.
So that, was it the 4th block is for intervention and recap?
It's actually win time, so it's both intervention and acceleration. It's what I need time.
Okay.
So we realize that some kids did really well in remote learning, and they're ahead of the game. We don't want to stifle them and hold them back. We don't want to hold kids back for any reason, and we want to support them with the interventions we need. So win time, what I need, acceleration or intervention during that time.
So what's a typical day gonna be like? Classes start at what, 8:10 or whatever?
Yeah, and we're gonna, Steve, do you know what the bell schedule is developing like here?
Well, we're asking teachers to come in earlier. We used to come in at 7:45. Now they're going to be coming in at 7:30 because we need to ensure that students that are coming off the bus are not gathering in the halls and stuff unsupervised. They're going to need to go to their first period class right away. So teachers are going to have to come in earlier for 7:30, but then we'll back that up in the afternoon. So instead of having a 3:15 end of day, their end of day will be at 3. As far as the schedule, it's going to be 80 minutes from once 7:45 starts. That's where classes will begin, and we'll be going every 80 minutes from there, and we're going to have some other warrior time, wing time, and stuff like that. Lunch.
Are you gonna have increased like outdoor time?
We're going to try to promote that as much as we can. In fact, you know, if we can have lunch periods, some kids eating lunch on nice days, we're going to definitely have to do that as well. We want to promote that. We know that it's healthier outside, so let's do that. Staggered class switching, right? We can't have 100 kids in the hallway, right? That you can't. You can only have 50. So figuring out a staggered way to switch classes. making sure that we try to do as many one-directional hallways as possible. Or staircases, you know, the staircase here in the middle of the high school might be an up only, and the one down the other end, or VRMS, that's a down only. You might be encouraged to, you know, to walk this hallway only this way, and then you gotta go upstairs and walk that way if you wanna go back. So one directional hallway, same thing at Fort Kent Elementary, just because these are the guidance that we have that are safer.
So some of the feedback I've heard from teachers has been cleaning time, downtime. So how do you plan to incorporate that into a typical workday?
We're going to do the best that we can with what we have, and then adjust accordingly. We're going in the survey, and we meet with the union, the teachers union, every week now, so we're having these open conversations. We know that teachers aren't required to clean their classrooms, but we have teachers that are saying, please let me clean, you know, throughout the day. So we're going to supply them with the SDS sheets and the cleaning materials, the Lysol wipes, if they want to do that. Absolutely, they're going to be able to do that. And then when classrooms are vacant, we're going to try to get in and fog those classrooms as best we can. Without a doubt, after the end of the day, we're having more of a deep cleaning. Weekends are going to have an even more deep cleaning, and that type of thing. But just trying to promote that we all need to help each other to keep these places clean and make sure that they're safe. Water fountains are going to be capped off, so you can't drink from the fountain. We're getting additional water filling stations so that students can fill up their water bottles and have their own water bottles. We're not going to be sharing materials, manipulatives at the elementary school. Everyone's going to have their own crayons, there's no shared. We can't do that anymore. So it's all very specific to keeping things for the student. Trying to keep cohorts together. When I say cohorts is, a classroom of kids or a bus of kids, trying not to mingle those as best we can. A little bit easier at the elementary school, a little bit harder at the high school where they switch periods, but we're trying to eliminate that with our block scheduling, so there's less transition periods. More time the kids are staying together. And the idea there is that if a kid gets sick, we know that cohort is going to be the ones that we need to, do some contact tracing and figuring out what's happening if more than that student are sick. But we hope that it's not an exposure to an entire wing, an entire school, an entire district, because we're eliminating that cohort size.
So you mentioned cohort, so you're purposeful in saying one classroom, let's say first, second, third grade, is going to stay together the whole time, the whole day.
Okay. Mr. Netto, did you want to talk about that here? Go ahead, Mr. Netto.
Yeah, so you look at the cohorts in terms of the size of Fulton Elementary School. In order to provide the lunches and the recesses and everything else that goes along with students staying in school all day, the cohorts are going to be a little bit bigger than one specific classroom. So if you take a look at our kindergarten, we have 4 kindergarten classes, so that cohort will be 2 classrooms. So those 2 classrooms will have recess at the same time and be in that same period.
And they would be the only ones outside at recess at that time?
They would be the only ones in that zone outside.
Zone,
that time.
yes, thank
So
you.
we may be breaking up the playground into different zones. So students will be crossing this. That answers.
Okay. So how is the staff interaction going to be during these times? Is everyone going all out, all hands on deck out there with the students? I mean, I'm just curious, rain days, how are you guys going to deal with things like that?
We still have to honor a teacher. A teacher needs to go to the bathroom, a teacher needs to go, so we're going to have to get really creative with all hands on deck. Administrators, they're always all hands on deck, but even more so, and utilizing our ed techs possibly a little bit differently.
Okay.
We're going to be asking you to support a position or 2 or 3 where we think bringing in some full-time subs. We're calling it, actually I changed the name of it, temporary support personnel, where we can use some of these temporary support personnel to go tag that teacher and say, hey, you need a break, and rotate and do those type of things, because we're going to need to take care of our folks for sure.
No, thanks.
Talked about, I don't remember, the recaptured learning, and when students are starting to return. I guess I'm always thinking logistically as far as, so the new second grade class, new class coming to second grade, has their new teacher, but their old teacher is coming to visit,
Yeah.
to stuff. are they gonna be the same class groupings as last year, or
They're
should
not.
we have to like
They're
move
not.
around?
No, they're, you know, they're going to have to find their kids
Yeah.
and kind of connect base with their kids more. It's not gonna be the same class.
And they talked about like, and we had talked about this in the spring about like diagnostic testing to find out like where kids are at, and we had talked about how it's better to do it in the fall when they come back.
Right.
Are the remote learners gonna also be brought in to do
We're
some of that stuff?
going to ask them to have an opportunity to do that. So they might not be coming to school, because obviously they don't want to come into school, but if we can set up a testing area where they feel it's safe, I don't know, town library or somewhere, we need to get that data from all students.
Mhm.
Mr. Sewell?
Yep.
At Fort Kent Elementary, it's going to be a little different than it might be at Madawaska Elementary. So those students will be dropping back for 1 week as a transition. They'll be
For-
dropping back to
for what?
their previous teacher for 1 week, and then they'll be transitioning to the next grade.
For what purpose?
That's to give them the opportunity to get back together. They're going to do the social emotional learning, because they're still the teachers that know the students best, know them best when they where they were when they left off, what their needs were at that time, how they ended up. And so they'll do that social emotional connection, they'll lay that foundation, and then they'll do some targeted assessments regarding what their skill levels are today versus where they left off at the end of the year versus where they left off when they left on March 15th. And then they'll pass the teachers, but I'm thinking part of that plan is for the new teacher to come in, get acquainted with them, the new teachers at the successive grade level, to come in, get acquainted with them, and then to accomplish that transition that way.
I feel like part of the reason for removing potato harvest for the elementary school is to not have so much starts and goes and changes, and this seems like just doing that, but in a week.
Well, I think that was planned by the building principal and the teachers. Would you be able to speak to that piece of personal elementary? I mean, in terms of the 1 week. Well, so originally the idea was going to be doing 2 weeks. So we decided that 2 weeks would be too much, so we wanted to do 1 week instead. The idea was that they'd be, like Peter said, would be with their previous year's teacher, where they're comfortable, where the teacher already knows them. And that's where we can really get a lot of the new SOPs out of the way in terms of what mask wearing is like, what washing your hands, transitions in the hallways using the one direction and using those signs. So I felt like that was going to be a better transition for the kids coming into the new school year, and just starting off fresh with people that may not.
I appreciate that, Robbie. I think that's a great idea.
I guess I have a couple of questions. One of them is, unlike Sarah, my concern is teacher burnout because of so much stuff that's going to happen here in the near future. And I agree with you, we have parents that want the kids out of their house into school, and you have other parents that you're going to stay in my house. I understand that part. I think that sometimes this week you're going to give the parents a choice. Is that correct?
Correct.
We're going to give them a choice on stuff that's really, we don't know how it's going to work. And so how much time, I think they need, the parents of these children need to be able to assess what's going to happen in a week or 2 or 3 weeks to say, hey, I don't like this, or yes, I like this. But for how long, once they make a decision, yes, I'm in, or no, I'm not, is there a time there, a reasonable time where they can change their mind?
We had asked for a quarter, which would be the November 6th. And that was specific to students who choose remote learning first and then change their mind and say, no, all my friends went back, I want to go back. This is going to be a number game that's going to be impossible to figure out. Which teachers are teaching remote kids, and we don't even know, because we don't have the data yet, we don't even know how to figure that out yet. So to have that target keep moving beyond the start of the school year is going to be very difficult. That being said, there's always specific cases that happen where, you know, we're not gonna tell people no and then that's the end of the story. We'll work with families based on their individual needs, but we're trying to let them be mindful in the survey, letting them know that as you enter this, try to understand this is gonna be a commitment for a while, is all we're asking.
It is, my other question is, as a staff member, liability is if basically you have a case in your class, what is the district's liability to the teacher?
I don't think that the district, I think Giselle or Lucy or somebody else can correct me if I'm wrong, but the district's never liable for a teacher getting pneumonia or a teacher getting the seasonal flu or the teacher getting anything, any viral thing that normally occurs. They can get that anytime. So COVID is not unlike that, where it's something that that you are subject to, no matter where you are. So I don't think, and Giselle, I don't know, did you get any sense that districts would be liable for?
I guess my next question is if you got to quarantine for 14 days, it means you're out of work for 14 days.
Right.
That's my question.
So
No.
staff members have the availability to take advantage of the Coronavirus Act, where they can get 10 days of paid leave, so which is 2 weeks of school, 10 days of paid leave for coronavirus-related absences, and that can also include childcare needs that they have. So they don't have to be infected. They could be childcare needs. They can take advantage of that. Beyond that, you're right. It would be their sick leave that would allow them to be out. We try to encourage that conversation with the staff members. You have the coronavirus days if you need them. That doesn't come out of your sick leave. Also, a staff member can, in lieu of the 14-day quarantine, and Dr. Hart, are you here?
I'm right there.
Can they take a test instead of the 14-day quarantine?
Unfortunately, no, because the 14 days is incubation period. So I specifically posed this question to infectious disease just to make sure. But you can test negative on day 5 and then still start your viral thing on day 12 or whatever. So most people will get sick within the first 5 to 7 days, but not everybody. So the 14-day quarantine is mandatory, but there's no reason why they can't work from home if they feel fine. So they don't have to be on vacation if they can Zoom their classroom and everyone goes to remote learning for 3 weeks.
The same thing can apply to the student then.
Absolutely.
Correct.
Yep.
Yep, and so the quarantine is non-negotiable for that classroom. I mean, even if everyone's wearing masks, but if you're in the same room, indoors all day, it's a coma.
So that would apply to the same bus route? Everyone who's on the same bus route would have to go out as well?
Correct.
So that's what the school wants to do, and that's
And everyone
being
who
very
had
cautious.
cafeteria time together would have to go out as well?
Well, so that's being very cautious. If you had assigned seating, you could go by distance, and I could talk to infectious disease about exactly how far away, because it's not all day, and the ventilation is, I mean, buses are kind of drafty, and it's all about ventilation, so I can get back to you, but the school right now says, yeah, the whole bus, and that's
It's only 24.
very safe. Apparently, it's only 24 kids now. So, but that's very cautious.
My last question is the concern for the grammar school teacher that really can't teach remotely because the kids won't learn remotely. What are we going to do?
It's always going to be a challenge. There's no software program. There's no, we can get our teachers the best software, the best hardware. Nothing replaces a teacher in a classroom. But we have to respect the wishes of the parent and hope that they're able to support that education. Some parents did very well with remote learning and supporting their kids and working with the teacher hand in hand. We hear all kinds of success stories, and we hope that those parents that do opt to teach remotely, they're going to take that initiative to do it. Mom and dad that work all day and they're 6-year-olds, that's not going to work. So we need to have those conversations with folks.
So really, you're going to have a lot of information for us in 2 weeks.
I hope so.
Okay.
I hope so.
Are we still gonna be working with UMFK?
In like Pleasant Street,
Yeah.
Valley Unified Academy. We are, but our students are no longer going to go on campus. UMFK has a closed campus for their students. And we essentially have a closed campus as well. Parents won't be gathering in the lobbies to drop off kids and pick up kids anymore. So we do have the partnership. It's going to be through our dual enrollment teachers here or online virtual learning.
I know that I'm doing a class, I'm doing class in UMFK in the fall, and my understanding is we're gonna be simulcasting. So I'll be doing a live class in front of people, and then it's gonna be Zoomed or whatever to anybody who doesn't wanna come into class.
Okay.
This strikes me as a particularly great opportunity. I mean, if we're gonna get anything good out of this, this is something we could do. I mean, it seems like it would make it much easier for our high school students who wanna participate in a class at UMFK. We might be able to, this seems like a good time to take advantage, because we don't have to have our students go over to the university. They
Right.
can literally sit with their tablet
Absolutely.
and watch business law with me if they want.
Yep.
Yay.
And some of
Thursdays, 9 o'clock.
Some of them will be doing that. The ones that are taking classes not in dual enrollment, but taking from the university, that's how they're going to be participating.
I mean, I wonder if you should, I don't say push it, you don't want to do that, but that would free up an educator to do something else. If you're not going to teach accounting and you're going to say, if you want accounting, you have to take accounting at UMFK, this person now is free to do something else now to help support the students. So I don't want to.
Well, we have to also be careful not to push our teachers out of work by passing on the work they do to another. So that's kind of a careful balance. But we are having conversations about, what do we not have that we can take advantage of? Or, you know what I mean?
I'm with Jake though. I think if we make a promise, and Doug, you're sitting here, I mean, if we make a promise to a teacher that we're not throwing you out of a job, we're freeing you up to help with other stuff, so you can maybe support another teacher who needs space, or that, because I think things are going to be crazier than we even anticipate.
Far greater.
And I don't think I'm wrong there. If we have a teacher that can do accounting here, that's great, but maybe this is the year we have the students take it through MFK, so that accounting teacher is free to provide support to the math teachers who are going to be doing in-class instruction and remote instruction. I mean, maybe that's our release valve for, I don't know, is that, Doug, you're here, what do you think?
I think having extra, having the idea that teachers are available to work household help, but in the weeks,
Yeah.
that's good.
Yeah, because I don't want to get rid of teachers, but I think if we can use, if we've got extra capacity outside of our campus, why not tap right into it? It's a great I mean, COVID sucks, but if there's an opportunity, we can take it without, and nobody's going to bark at us for having too many teachers this year.
Right.
I mean, this is the last time we'll probably have an opportunity to expand this kind of learning for our kids in a way that we're not going to get a riot. And it's for the first time absolutely 100% available on this. I feel strongly about that. I think this is a great. I think there's a lot of awful here, but this is an opportunity.
We'll talk to Scott was in, and we'll start brainstorming on that.
Yeah.
I have 3 more questions. Robbie, we heard from Steve about the daily schedule and stuff a little bit. How does, and I think having extra hands, extra staff is amazing, because yes, they need to use the restroom and plan and make copies. Are teachers going to be, I know a lot of them eat lunch with their students anyway, is there still going to be like the same kind of duty schedules, or they have to be in their class when the first student gets there, and they have to be in their classroom when the last student gets there, because otherwise they can't be together?
Yep, so those are all things we're continuing to look at right now. But if you look at the lunch schedule, it won't be anything close to the same as what we had in the past. So in the past, we've had an A-wing lunch and B-wing lunch and a C-wing lunch. So right now, we're looking at our lunches being provided by cohorts. So you might have that kindergarten cohort have their lunch, then they might go to recess. Well, the old A-wing recess, that duty schedule was split up between 7 or 8 teachers, a few at tech. So we're going to have to be really creative in terms of how we use all of our staff in the building in order to be able to man those lunches and those duties in order to not have our teachers burn out.
Right, and then like, so, their contract, you're talking about like shifting their contract, that's when, that's when they have to be in their classroom, and then other than that, unless they're on duty, and they're not on duty every day.
Right.
So it's similar to last year, just different.
So, yeah, and where we have to really shift our manpower to be able to provide that 20-minute lunch. So one teacher might have a duty, but let's, for example, take our kindergarten classroom. We have two that are side by side. So using proper social distancing, students can have their lunch with one teacher providing the supervision while the other teacher has their lunch, their 20-minute break that they have. And then they might switch out going into the recess.
Okay.
And that's just one option looking at it in terms of how we provide the supervision for the kids, the recesses, because they're gonna need that time, and then the break time for the teachers as well.
One of the other ones is, I know we talked in the spring about, I think we have just as many unknowns as we have in the spring, they're just different unknowns. One of the things in the spring that we had issues with is, especially the littles who, I mean, don't learn on electronics all day, they just, if there is a parent that wants their kindergartner home doing distance learning, I mean, are they gonna be able to send packets and paperwork home, or is it gonna all be iPad based again?
We're gonna be sending more things with manipulatives and also with some supplies.
Right.
Because there's far less
Regardless.
remote learning.
Right, okay.
But remember, in the spring, there was not a lot of answers in terms of how long does this disease stay on,
Right.
this virus stay on there. So really, in terms of being safe for our students, sending those weekly packets, that I don't think was a good idea at the time. Now we might know a little bit more about how long does that stay on a piece of paper. Can they get a weekly packet and keep it on the doorstep for 2 days and then they're gone? I think we have more answers to be able to do it now than we did 5 months ago.
My last one, Gary, now I'll let you talk about it. In this reintegration guide, there's the different choices or the different models versus what's going on in the region. Okay, it's a two-part question, sorry. Did we give any thought to making the region to include Caribou and Presque Isle, as we have parents that work there every day? Or all of Aroostook County, or?
Well, so, and I'm gonna defer to Dr. Hart in a second here, but one of the things that I think I'm a little bit proud about is our thought process in this, especially given the fact that the entire state of Maine has been given a green designation to open schools, and we know that what's happening in Cumberland is very different than what's happening. Cumberland's very safe still compared to, you know, Miami-Dade County, but it's not Aroostook County safe. So I'm really proud of the fact that we're showing some extra caution here with this, because for our region, based on what's happened so far, we all know our region. The minute we have 10 cases, people are gonna, you know, just really change their mindset around this. And here's where I'll defer to Dr. Hart. Aroostook County is really big, you know, so.
Yeah, there's no way I want to go by whatever's happening in Holton. It makes no sense. So yes, there can be travel from Caribou and Presque Isle, especially Holton a little less so, but the amount of travel, if you take these very strict, this is very strict. So if you take the state guidelines, probably, if you think about Cumberland County, there is way more than 20 active cases, and they're full green. And so this is much more strict and much easier to manage in terms of monitoring than trying to figure out what's going on in, you know, Holton and especially Holton, but also somewhat in Presque Isle. There's been like little upticks here and there recently. There's nothing here. So we're enough removed, and people are not maybe doing social distancing and masking like I would like them to, but it's still so far been enough. And the amount of testing that Maine can do, and especially the amount of testing we can do here compared to our population, is great. So we'll be able to contact trace and nip whatever happens pretty quick.
And I think that's why you're seeing the southern Maine schools, for the most part, move right into a hybrid model where they're bringing their kids in for maybe 2 days a week, and then remote learning 2 days a week, and different cohorts on different days. you know, those superintendents, even though they have a green designation, those superintendents are worried about, you know, the safety of their kids. So they're not opening schools like we are, providing, you know, they realize what's happening in their town.
The other thing I'm really proud of on this actually is when they looked at hybrid learning models, that's very evidence-based because the kids 10 and under don't spread virus as well. 11 and up spread it about as well as adults do. So having their hybrid model try to keep the littles in school, which not only works on an infection basis, but it also is better for the kids because those littles are more likely to need in-classroom instruction and the older ones are more likely to adapt.
So the K through 4, they're pretty much the gold standard for what we want to do to maintain the school to stay open.
Yep.
Right?
But at that point, we would be in a full social distancing in that hybrid model where we'd have to have the 6 feet. We couldn't have, you know, we don't have enough space at Fort Kent Elementary, so we essentially have to use this building for K to 4 as well. You know, we have to.
Well, I'm wondering if we want to maintain K to 4, they have to be in school, right? Barry mentioned K to 4, keeping people safe, whatnot. I mean, why, you know, why don't we just say, you know, 6 through 12 is remote learning unless you absolutely have to be in school and make that choice.
My junior daughter needs to be in school.
Then she can come to school, right?
Right.
If she needs that, then she needs that. I know parents who say, my kid did great with remote learning
Yep.
and mine struggled, so they have to go to school.
I think that's what we're saying, because we're saying you can choose.
Can you scroll up first just a second? Oh, the other way, sorry, down.
Oh, yeah.
Brain injury. No, back up.
Oh, sorry.
Okay, right there. So I think I am on, I agree with you, Jake. The instruction choice learning model.
Yep.
I think what's kind of confusing is remote learning will be available to those learners who are health compromised or have family members.
Or who are otherwise uncertain about the return to classroom.
Okay.
I think maybe in your.
I would just say choose to do so and take out the reasons why and the judgment and the
Okay.
if they want to do it this way, they get to do it this way, whether it's for health reasons or
Remote learning will be available to those learners who want it. Or
Yes.
who choose it.
I like it. That makes me feel
Feels
better.
better.
Listen, this is the great thing about this, and so one thing I'm going to ask of you in when you approve this is that you're approving a document that's going to change. Like we'll have conversation with 33 tomorrow, and they may have a little tweak that they, and that's okay. It says the same thing. If we have a major change, like okay, all of a sudden now we're keeping all kindergartners home. Well, we're obviously going to come back to you guys, but it's a live doc. So what's shared with parents, it happens on the fly, you know?
Yeah, I think, so I have parent feedback to discuss quickly, maybe. Sorry, Karen. So some of them want to know how quickly modalities can change, right? So if we go from a 0 to 5 to a 6 to 19, like how seamless do you think that might be for a learner? And like the parents, like is this going to be a switch and be like, okay, you were working at a job and now you're not able to work at a job and you have to stay home with your children, right? And this is what's going to happen. So I think what I like to see are examples on the website, you know, for we have model days, what it would look like between Steve and Robbie. And maybe if we could put something on our website to say this is a typical 0 to 5 day. And then this is what a 6 to 19 day is going to look like in a hybrid mode. That might alleviate some concerns that parents have.
Yeah.
Because I don't know what that's going to look like. Because I don't want to have to teach. If I knew that if we went to a hybrid or the full remote learning and I only had to have Monday, Wednesday, Friday to have my child do something, and Tuesday, Thursdays were off days to do something else, and they didn't have to require, you know, online synchronous types of activities, I think that would be much easier. So I'd be very, very curious. I think the parents would appreciate that. I know I was a parent with a kindergarten student, would like to know that I'm not required to be on Monday through Friday if this happens. I would appreciate a Monday, Wednesday, Friday, or maybe Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, or whatever, Friday off, something like we did this past spring. So I would dare say that a lot of parents might appreciate that.
I have two. First, I see Doug's here. The teachers' union, I'm assuming, has been brought on board on this. How are the teachers feeling about this plan, Doug?
With the plan,
Yeah.
I think there's, the ones that ride the, of course, know they're very concerned. The ones that can,
Teachers haven't seen this plan. We didn't, no, we didn't see it, and it hasn't been approved yet.
Teachers haven't seen the plan.
We did, because we were in the meeting.
so,
So we don't know what the
no.
conventional wisdom is around
In
it.
general,
We
they're
did.
scared, in general, they're scared, and every day it changes, and what are we doing, and how's the day going to be set up, and
They're looking for answers,
there are none.
and we haven't been able to give them one because
And,
the
and,
fluid nature of the plan.
and just the answer, like today, with the buses, it was different yesterday. Are they nervous? Yes. Are we scared? Yes. Are we, don't know if we're gonna be able to go to the bathroom? Don't know when we're gonna have lunch? We're gonna sit and with our kids? What are we gonna do when your masks are off? 6 feet distancing, you have to eat in the classroom? How's that gonna work when you have 20 kids in your classroom? There is no 6 feet. There's questions we don't even know what to ask. But the point is that we don't know. Every day it changes. Every day the regulations from the state and the federal and the CDC change. We have 2 weeks middle school we're starting. You guys haven't approved the plan yet.
This is the
The
first
school
time,
board needs to approve the plan.
this is the first time to see it.
The
Welcome to
plan,
And the
2020.
plan keeps changing. It has to. Because the regs keep changing. I'm not blaming you, Ben.
no, the plan was different yesterday. The plan,
Exactly.
so it's very
So
challenging.
it's kind of hard to tell the teachers what we're gonna do because you send them, you send them an email and say, this is what we're gonna do, and then tomorrow or an hour later, oh, no, that's changed. But you guys have to realize that you have our lives in your hands.
Well, we do realize, and then I want to just let you know that we were supposed to meet on the 10th, and we moved it back because we didn't think that was fair to the soonest day we could, which is today.
Yeah.
We don't, I'm asking you because I am concerned, because I can't imagine going into where you're going into. I'm going into court not knowing if I even have to be in court some days because they change our court days at the day before our court date.
What's a school?
Yeah.
As educators, we've always been, we don't know what one day's going to bring
Yeah.
to the next. This is a whole other level. And this is I'm really concerned that we're not gonna go to the bathroom all day. That already happened before anyway. That's kind of been the life of the teacher, our bladders are all shot by the time we're 40. But, it's gonna get worse. And then how am I going to deal with, a child who picks up COVID at school and then has to deal with their grandparent dying? How am I gonna deal with that? How am I gonna look them in the eye and help them through that?
Yeah.
That's where I think where most of us are, because, and there's no answers to give. You can make a plan, it changes every day. It's frustrating, it's scary, and it's terrible, but it's life right now. I mean, when we have to deal with probably a school shooter coming in, at least we can see them coming.
Yeah.
We can't see this coming. I mean, I look here, I'm not chastising you guys, but 6 of the school board members here are not wearing masks. Guys, we've been in this room for how many minutes? CDC data has proven that that time spent right now, this room, if any of us have it, you guys are done. So, how many children have parents at home that aren't gonna wear a mask, or even if they come in, they're gonna wear a mask, but still have that mentality that, I'm not chastising you guys, well, maybe I am.
Maybe a little.
Sounds like
It's okay.
But, that, so I look at that and I think, so I don't know if I made my point, but we're all scared, we have no answers, you have no answers. We get answers, they change daily, they change hourly.
Do you think there's enough time between the approval of the plan on the first day of school?
20.
If you don't think there is, given that the governor has already said the school year is flexible, that may be a factor that we ought to look at.
Personally, Doug, I'd be inclined to, approve this plan, because it's a plan, and it's gonna have to change, I recognize that. But I do think, this is me, I'm not speaking for the board, this is Toby.
Okay.
I think once the plan comes out, I think input from teachers, I'm assuming Ben's gonna be hearing it, and your building administrators are gonna be hearing it. And if Ben calls us and says the teachers had this concern, we gotta iron out these issues, out these issues. I don't see the board saying, well, too bad, teachers get to work. I don't see that happening. I think if there are issues that come forward, we need to deal with them, period. And I think the reason I'm glad you're both here is because we've got the whole union and employee relationship, which is always weird and uncomfortable. But from a human perspective, you're the people who care for my children. And I want to know what you have to say, but at the same time, we got to go through these processes, and it sucks. I'm inclined to say I think we're going to approve this today, but I think there's a lot of tweaking because we don't know all the answers. But I want to keep hearing from you. It's important to me, not only as a board member, but as a parent and as a person in this community to hear from you. And I want to know the teachers are feeling heard too, because if we have mass burnout come October, then we're done for. That's my feeling.
I think we're going in, I've been studying all summer to learn remote learning, online learning, learn how to do it. Because we just did emergency learning, we didn't do, March. And I'm still, day one is going to be day one, day two will look better, everything will look better, but we're scared. I'm feeling, and I trust Ben, but I feel like, and I don't know if the other teachers feel that way, I feel like I'm being sent to slaughter. And what helps me is that the cases are very well under control up here. And, I think people are pretty good. We already live socially distanced around here anyway, so it's kind of normal. But, to change. I was at Walmart the other day. I get home and on Monday, oh my gosh, there's an outbreak in Walmart. Here we go again. We live with that every day, and as educators, it's I don't know, it's awful.
Ben,
And there's no answers.
I think that we realistically have to meet every week till school starts and to inform people. People need to be informed. That was one of the biggest concerns of the parents that I've been talking to. And they said, well, we have no information. Well, the information's changing daily, hourly. So I think that we don't need to have long meetings, but we need to get together somehow so where everybody's informed and as a board we have a feeling on what the teachers feel and what the parents feel, so we can make the right decision. But I think, like Toby said, we're going to approve this thing to get going. But we need to know how many are coming, how many are not, and we need to know who wants to teach this way and who doesn't, because they're not all going to want.
And I would add that we need to know, is there anything that can be changed to this plan that makes you feel less like you're going to slaughter? Because I feel like all of us.
All remote learning is the only thing that's going to make me feel safe. Safest. The MEA had a webinar the other day. They had a couple of pediatricians on there, and they said, masks are the thing. And I keep telling myself in the back of my mind, if I have a mask, the students have a mask, I should be okay. But that's today's data.
Are the teachers allowed to opt for it if that is their preference, or at this point, no?
We're asking the teachers with a medical condition to do that, just because we have to start somewhere. My sense is we're going to be asking some teachers who want to be in school to teach remotely even though they're in school, I think we're gonna be looking more of those situations than teachers not wanting to come back. Because teachers wanna be back, they do.
Do you have a sense if that is more true for one school versus the other? So you think all of them?
Don't know.
I agree with Barry's idea of meeting weekly. And I think we could probably move through this plan much quicker, because I feel like I'm trying to give something that's better than what, or I'm answering parents' questions and teachers' questions against what you presented. And if there's some flexibility, it has to be correct. But if there's something out there and they can look at it and come back to us with their concerns, then we could answer it in a better fashion.
I'm also happy to not come weekly, but if you set up a large Zoom meeting with all the teachers, I'm happy to answer medical questions. I think that would be a good idea. And I've offered that before, but we haven't had enough guidance yet from the state to be able to move forward. So once this plan's approved, I'm happy to do that. And Ben and Peter can figure out how to make that happen.
And I just have one more thing, I swear.
Me too.
I'm a big fan of environmental, like engineering controls and whatnot, and I've had more than one parent express deep concerns with the cafeteria and having students rotating in and out of there. And how are you ensuring that the ventilation is proper? Like, you going in and you're measuring the square footage, the cubic feet, and you know that this proper ventilation is going to exchange the air properly? I don't know if you've done that. And so I feel concerned that we're going to be, even though we're social distancing, we're keeping it less than 50 people. We're just like you mentioned earlier, we've been sitting in this room for X amount of time and stuff's in the air. How can we ensure that the room is being properly ventilated?
The only way to not do that is to keep those kids in their classroom the entire day. And then you open up a whole different can of worms in solving that problem. So our mindset is to do transition safely, to do it within the guidelines, to sanitize as best we can. We already, between A-wing and B-wing and C-wing lunch, every table is washed with bleach solution, and we already do those things. Ventilation, we have a school that was built in 1969. It doesn't have great ventilation. We've got fans here for ventilation today. That's what we have.
So I can speak to that also. So for example, we have been dealing with being open the entire time and dealing with people that are more likely to be sick just by virtue of them coming to my office for a reason. And we have very strict infection control guidelines on what to do about room cleaning and all of those things from A to Z. The biggest difference is we don't have big groups of children, so that part's totally different. But in terms of environmental control, if I have someone in one of my exam rooms that wears their mask appropriately, there's no aerosol generating procedures, no one's getting the neb or being intubated, okay? And they're in that room for a half an hour, and they leave, and later I find out that they're positive. If I wore my mask, they wore their mask, I don't even need to get tested. And all the patients after that use that room do not need to be tested. They're fine.
Well, this is lunchtime though, in the cafeteria, so.
I agree with that. So,
Yeah.
but if you're talking about moving cohorts into the cafeteria where they're only with the same people, they have to be in the cafeteria instead of their rooms, because with the mask off, you have to be 6 feet apart. You have to. And there's no reasonable way to do that in the classroom, we think. We don't know numbers yet. So, but if your concern is that you move in and then you move them out and someone else goes in after them, that's fine.
I think we should do a Q&A with parents too. Honestly, if we're gonna do something with the teachers, I think the parents would appreciate that.
The hospital has told me that I work for the hospital and I need to take care of them also, but I will do my best.
No. And I think, thank you.
There's a couple of other teachers, and I like it when teachers come. Can we ask if any of them, even though they didn't sign up, say anything, kind of anything to say?
you did, but we can ask again.
I just know that as an elementary school teacher, the majority of teachers, and I respect my colleagues who aren't comfortable going back. I can completely sympathize with them and their worries, but I can also tell you that we want to get back with our littles. We want to be, and I know that Lucy and other teachers who are feeling uncomfortable want to be with their students as well. But I know that for me, getting back into the classroom and doing what I love to do and what all my other colleagues love to do is most important to us. But we also want to be mindful that there's always some problems in any system you're in any environment you're in, and we also have to be mindful that COVID didn't suddenly take away all issues that we had prior to COVID, and COVID has also provided us, or in turn, added another layer of issues, especially the mental and emotional well-being of our students. So as much as we all feel like, you know, yes, we got to get in and we need every moment that we can with these kids, and we need this, we also have to be mindful of the exhaustion that comes with the masks, the exhaustion that's going to come from the fact that we can't do that simple little touch that kids used to really react to, that simple pat on the back, that simple little hug for our littlest that they needed. So seeing only this of me is not going to provide them with that same, you know, sense of security and everything else. So I think those breaks that we're building in are going to be extremely necessary. But I also think just mental health of the teachers is extremely important. And when we say 7:30 to 3, there is never a day that's going to be 7:30 to 3. And I respect that we lost a lot of academic time in the spring, and that we want to get back to it right now. But that's on the side of all the emotional and well-being that we need to do with our learners. And I think 7:30 to 3 to jump right in is going to be very overwhelming. And all of the teacher feedback that we've been getting in the last week has been that, how do we go from being out of school for 6 months, it's been, to now suddenly 7:30 to 3 all at once, and with a lot more to consider. So when Bolton came out with their plan, I think it suddenly was like, wow, there are a lot of schools going 2 days, off a day, 2 days, so learners are in school. And I don't want to see that. However, shortening the day a little bit just to begin with as a transition period, I think might be a wise thing for us to consider, maybe just till harvest break of high school, because it's a long time to get back into a routine of 6 months of being out. And those learners that take that second bus trip, they're not out of our school until 3:45. And that means some of us teachers are not out and off of those kids until that time as well. So I just ask the board and to, maybe think about those things as you discuss.
Dr. Hart, as a liaison from the hospital, you can provide guidance, correct, to us as a...
For the medical portion, yes.
Is mental piece count as medical?
It does, but I am not going to pretend to be a mental health specialist.
Okay, that's important.
I can pretend.
I mean,
Isn't
I could,
that
but
what they do
I'm not
anyway?
gonna. So
Tell me what you're
that being said,
So,
they've been talking to us about partnering to do some, I don't know. what the right word is. Yeah, some employee assistance program.
Well, the reason I'm bringing it up is, you know, the point of shorter days, if that's something you think would be a recommendation that you could get from your colleagues, I'd be open to listen to that as a board.
I think I would rather, at this point, as we said, approve this plan with the understanding that it is malleable, with the understanding that the entire teaching use cohort is going to get to see it. And then I would assume the teachers and the union will come forward with recommendations to the superintendent's office. I think as a school board member, that's as far into this particular pool I want to wade.
No, that's fair, thank you.
But I think we should approve this now. I move to approve this plan with the understanding we're going to have increased we're going to be meeting as a school board to go over this ever-changing arrangement weekly. And that we're going to get the input from the teachers and the teachers union. I think it's imperative that we work together.
Okay. So do we have a second?
I have
I'll
a second.
Any discussion?
Hey, it was me, sir. Yes. I just have one thing to add. Only one short thing. One is, I believe that the shorter day is interesting, and I think maybe not as overwhelming as a full day. And I also think that we're going to approve this plan with the idea that maybe school won't start whenever it's supposed to start. We have to only start when we're ready. We have to be ready. All parts have to be ready. They don't have to be 100% ready, but you need to be ready beyond where we are right now. Okay, that's it.
Any further
Yes, Doug.
discussion?
One thing I'd like to,
What
one
I
thing
see
I'd like to,
happening, of course, is that as we try this plan, incrementally, I mean, as we try it, there'll be immediate response from all the people. I think it was mentioned that grade level team leaders or somebody will be selected to go and meet. But I think the staff as a group, a whole, will have lots to say after day one, day two. And so, I mean, I think that has to be not an official staff meeting maybe, but maybe yes. Something has to happen in the first weeks constantly to allow us to adjust accordingly. And the teachers in the trenches, in the front lines, will know a lot about how it's working.
We need to do this with the understanding that you're maybe not going to have 100% people on the same page. That's going to be, a balance, I guess. Understand? Okay, yes,
Keith, did you have, sorry, Keith.
Ben, what's the bus drop-off and pickup gonna look like at the elementary school and at the high school? As far as multiple buses arriving at the same time, and I don't know how many staff members we're gonna have in the lobby taking temperatures, or are we taking temperatures, we're just relying on parents to do that at home, the kids are gonna come in, we're gonna automatically assume they're feeling okay, and they're just gonna go to their first class?
So we have some temperature monitoring units that we've ordered. Did we receive them yet, Peter?
We've not received them yet. I've talked to them a couple times, they're coming. But
yeah. You stand in front of it, and it takes your temperature reading, and obviously nothing's perfect. We all know that the thermal thermometers, if it's a hot day, we have a fever. If it's a cold day, we're dead.
My concern is a large backlog, then all of a sudden you've got kids all the way down here to the Heritage Trail.
Yeah. One thing that Peter, I think, is going to work with his drivers on is if a bus is unloading, that second bus is not unloading at the same time as that previous bus that's unloading, so that those kids can come in, get screened safely. We're still going to have an A-wing entrance for the elementary school from the buses. Parents are still the main entrance. There's going to be a monitoring unit at both doors to monitor those kids. Here at CHS, there will be one in the front for the bus kids, and then for the drivers, there'll be one in the side door. So those two groups are not mingling as well. Trying to do as best we can to keep the flow going.
Well, that answers that question. My other question was, have we had discussions with the Teamsters Union as far as cleaning the classrooms, or teachers cleaning their own classrooms, or working with one another? I know in the past, been a little bit of an issue. If somebody wants to vacuum in their own rug, then we're, having a meeting and going over, hey, that's not your job, that's the custodian's job.
Right. We've been working with the custodial staff really well this summer. I mean, throughout this whole thing, they've been flat out, to tell you the honest truth. Just with the school lunch program and deliveries and with this, I mean, I think Peter's working 85 hours a day, which is amazing. We're not trying, and it is something that maybe, we just need to pull them aside and say, this is what we're not trying to get them to vacuum rugs. We're saying if teachers want Clorox wipes, they can do that. And teachers are already doing that. They're just, we're not supplying it to them.
I'd be more comfortable if we got some assurances from the Teamsters Union that this isn't the norm, obviously. We're gonna have maybe kids wiping down their own services, teachers wiping down services, whatever.
Yeah.
This isn't permanent, this isn't forever. It's actually a pretty good practice, and maybe we should make it forever. I mean, we have a lot less people.
If it's a student learning outcome, if you make it part of it.
Okay, we have a motion and a second on the floor. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Unanimous. School calendar, we have 3 changes to that. Does anyone want to make a motion?
To approve the updated 2021 updated calendar.
I'll second that.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Unanimous. False words.
What about sports? What about sports? What are we doing about sports? Can sports start? Okay, so this has actually been something that the Aroostook County Superintendents, we talked about on Tuesday, and it seems to be the, one of the equally more pressing things. Well, when are we moving? What are we doing? What's going on? And as a group, we feel that Aroostook County usually has the designation of being the first to do anything because we have the harvest break adjustment, what they call. So there was an internal memo of the MPA saying, Aroostook County schools, you can start playing games 2 weeks earlier than the rest of the state because you have a harvest adjustment. And I spoke to my colleagues at that time and said, wait a minute. If we don't have guidance from the MPA on how to safely have athletic competition, I don't believe we should be asking our school boards to approve of games being played because we know nothing about crowd control, we know nothing about crowd sizing, we know nothing about transportation of athletes and that type of thing, and how we do that, one per seat, and we have no guidance on if it's recommended just a Aroostook play or not. So what I'm asking of all of you, and you have your information in front of you, this is the latest MPA update. And it gives you consideration of Phase 3 and Phase 4, which are extended conditioning, extended activities, but not sports-related play. I think it is the responsibility of the MPA to give us guidelines before we ask you all to let us start playing games. And I don't think it would be wise for us to go out on a limb without that guidance. The DOE gave us guidance for how to return to classrooms safely, and we adjusted accordingly. I think the MPA needs to give us the same guidance, and then we can make a decision together on how to play. The Aroostook County Superintendents, we're pretty much unanimous on that. We're going to discuss next Tuesday middle school athletics, whether or not we should be starting middle school athletics with the same phases that the high school is having. I do not think that any of us feel that middle school should start ahead of high school if the guidance has not come out from the MPA to do that. So what I have for you is approval of Phase 3 and Phase 4, which would extend till September 7. And then September 7 would be the preseason for fall sports, and athletic contests would be able to start on September 18. I think that if that's what the rest of the state has for guidance, I think we should follow that as well, and wait for the MPA to put out some game guidance before we enter games.
What's the significant difference between phase 3 and phase 4?
Phase 3 is for any athletic group, so if the basketball team wants to condition, they can. Phase 4 is just fall sports.
Looks like there's social distancing in phase 3, but not in phase 4.
Same social distancing
Same.
requirements. Yep. It's the clusters, it's the groups of 10.
So is there any significant difference in what they're able to do between phase 1 and phase 2, 3, and 4?
It's the same thing. It's just a different number.
I guess my only concern is parent feedback that,
Why are we approving it?
yeah.
Because there is athletic, there's kids who want to do athletic things, they want to stay in shape, but we don't have guidance beyond them doing athletic things.
I'm just having a hard time understanding, because if phase 2 and phase 3 and phase 4 are all basically the same thing, if we just agree to remain in phase 2, it would have the same effect as going to phase 3 or phase 4.
Essentially, yeah. I don't work for the MPA, so.
This seems like just the most insane thing ever.
Except for student athletes from any season can practice in 2 and 3, but not in 4.
Right, 4 is just
4
fall.
is just for fall sports.
So if we go to 4, then our basketball players don't get to practice
They
basketball.
can no longer continue to have those summer basketball practices, which there's an end to those anyway during a standard school year.
Oh, I see. So this is to make sure that it's fair.
It's extending the summer open period where coaches can work with their athletes during the summer.
FE is crazy.
You heard it here first.
1 day notice for a tournament game. Phase 3 and 4, just like phase 1 and 2, but different. I don't care. Does anybody have any strong feelings? It seems silly. It seems like this is like moving the chairs around on the Titanic at this point. But anybody have any strong feelings about sports?
I think it's kind of like the reintegration plan, and you just keep changing, they move the date, so they're calling it phase 3 and phase 4, it's really not a major deal, so. Do we have a motion?
I'll make the motion.
No, I'll second.
Any more discussion? All in favor?
I'm going to abstain because I just don't understand.
New business then.
Okay. Under new business, these are all the changes to the agenda. The first one I have is a resignation from Secretary Bookkeeper Kathy Michaud. She submitted her resignation, is relocating. And so I would need a motion to approve the resignation of Kathy Michaud.
So moved.
Can we lump these all in, except for, we're gonna be discussing the nurse, right?
Yeah, so we
So
can
if
do
we-
the resignations together. So I
Yes.
have a
Yes.
resignation from Kathy Michaud. I have a resignation from Carissa Taggett, one-on-one ed tech at FKES, and then a resignation from Paula Benito, cook's helper at CHS.
So moved.
I,
Second.
and then for discussion,
Wait a
if you,
minute.
go ahead, sir.
I was gonna ask for discussion.
I guess, do you want to read the letter for Paula Benito?
Tell you what, I don't even think I brought it.
Okay.
It's thanking us for allowing her to work here, the standard.
Okay, no, thanks. I didn't want to skip that if that was in there.
Any further discussion? All those in favor? Unanimous?
For transfers, and this doesn't need board approval, I just wanted to let you know that Bethany Gallo has transferred to Kathy Michaud's position. Jill Gendro has transferred to Bethany's position. Megan Bonafant, who is our guidance secretary, has transferred to the restorative practice interventionist position that we had in-house. Angela Hebert from continuing ed, she's transferred into Megan's position in the guidance office. And then Lisa Pelletier has transferred from Title I Ed Tech to the new literacy Ed Tech we have in B-Wing. So that's just for your information. Those transfers those all occurred today. It was
Well-
it was
well
announced
done.
today.
I have a quick question.
Yeah.
Restorative practice interventionist?
Yeah.
What's that?
That's the, what Steve and John had proposed to you guys for the restorative practice for the middle and high school. Have an interventionist for that phase 1 of behavioral supports before they're sent to the office.
Yeah.
Yes. And Megan actually has a behavioral science background, so it was a perfect fit.
Did she start her new position before she transferred to the new position?
She only found out she got transferred today, so. For new hires, we have 2 nurses that we have several nurses that were interviewed. You have some letters in your packet, probably more near the bottom. One from Mr. Neto and one from Mr. Coletta. The recommendation for our nurses are Rebecca Michaud will be one of our nurses, and then Monique Michaud, and I believe Monique is here, will be our second nurse. And the idea is to have one nurse based more in one building or the other, but cross-train them in the event that one of them are out. We have familiarity with both buildings. So the motion is for Rebecca and Monique Michaud for school nurses.
So motion and second.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Unanimous.
And because of those transfers and everything, we have an opening for a Fort Kent Elementary School secretary, that's Jill's position. A continuing ed secretary, that's Angela's position. 2 ed tech one-on-ones, one of them is Carissa, the other one is Abby Lovelock, who transferred last month, transferred to pre-K ed tech. And then one Title I ed tech, which was Lisa's position.
That's a good one, Ben.
Good times. You're writing a lot of letters tomorrow. The chairman did mention that the board wanted to discuss facilities, updates, and projects. I did reach out to Mr. Saucier to talk about, what are some of the most pressing projects that need to be done in the buildings. And Mr. Saucier, without a doubt, said that asbestos floors are the priority in the buildings. Those are things that are definitely high up on the list, not only for safety, but for all kinds of reasons. Mr. Saucier, did you want to elaborate on that or anything else?
No, I had sent a complete list so that we could kind of take a look at it, but I'm not going to take up any time. I think the chief had the opportunity to see it and to share it with the board. But the flooring is probably our biggest issue throughout our high school. On our second floor is terrible because we have some tiles that are floating. And we have issues with staff that could be tripping at some uneven places in the floor. And so we're doing everything that we can to try to keep us as safe as possible. But that certainly is something that needs to be addressed. Our gym floor at the elementary school, those of you that have been there to watch a basketball game notice that sometimes there's tiles that go flying off the floor because there's stuff that's not stuck down. So, the floors are going to be an issue for us that we really need to address. If there's any opportunity for us to be able to make this come together, that certainly is a priority in order to be able to maintain the stability of our buildings.
You have a cost estimate?
I had other things on the list as well, that superintendent can share with you, and we'll go from there, I suppose.
Pete, what was the price we had quoted for the upstairs hallway?
Lucy, do you remember what that was? We had a quote, and I'm not, right around 30,000.
30,000. And then the Fort Kent Elementary gym,
We were in that same
in
vicinity.
the same, I think we had looked at about
I haven't got
4,000.
the square footage in front of me right here, but it's very close to what we were looking at for both of those. So, sizable amount of money to be repairing our floors, but we're there. We're in a situation where we need to repair these.
Gary, do you think we could, I'm gonna defer to you as the chair, like maybe for the next time we come in? I don't feel like, you don't necessarily need to speak to it right now, but I think kind of a list of costs and goals so we can see what we're looking at, we can take off, and we can start kind of bracing ourselves and doing the preparing for being here for the long haul.
Would you guys like it if I meet with the facilities committee and we kind of do some pre-work with that and?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think that's great.
So I'll work with Sarah and Keith and try to get the ball rolling on that.
That work for you, Gary?
It's good by me.
Did we want to get something similar to what we did at the high school with the engineering firm? I thought we discussed this months ago, that we were gonna do something
Yeah,
similar.
we had talked about it in the last, and I thought about this too, the last conversation we had about it was not using the same firm. And I was gonna reach out to other firms, and then COVID happened, so I never did.
Is it still warranted to see what our elementary school would need for upgrades?
Personally, I think we should defer to the facilities committee. We have one.
Sure.
Yeah, I think some of the most obvious things need to be handled first.
Yep.
And then, yeah.
Floating floors.
Technology take-home agreement.
In your packet, you have a technology take-home agreement that's been updated. We're trying to get more consistent language with other school districts to find out, you know, what's a fair agreement for devices. So in this agreement, Anne Marie, can you summarize what the changes are, the biggest changes?
Yes, so first the change is the cost of the insurance. Right now, we had a flat fee of $40 per student, and with the possibility of grade 4, 5, and 6 taking the devices home, we felt that if there was a family of 5, $40 per student was going to be really outrageous for the family, especially in the conditions, the financial heartbreak that may occur. So we looked at possibly doing a scale type waiver. So $40 is the first, and then I'm sorry, I don't have it in front of me.
60, 80, and then
Yep.
100.
So we have $60 for 2 in the family, and then $80 for 3, and then $100 is flat fee if you have 4 or more students. And that's between the 2 schools. And of course, you know, we'd be willing to work with the families in regards to financial assistance. But that's what we're proposing. We're also proposing that,
Excuse me, were those figures waived this past spring?
no, they already paid. They had already paid. We didn't charge the families that took them home at the elementary level.
Okay.
Yeah, no, at the junior high school level, they had already paid for the year, so those, we didn't have to waive anything. We only waived it for the elementary level because they didn't have to pay because it was so sudden, right? So the other thing that we're proposing is, starting your 7th grade year till you graduate, if you have any damages, the first offense is $100 deductible. The second offense goes up to $150. The third offense is $200, and then you don't get the device or you've got to plead for the device back, and you're required to pay any damages full price after the $200. And that's for the duration of their 7 year, you know, it's from 7th to 12th grade. Because we're seeing a lot of repeat offenders. And so we want to try to make them accountable for the damages that they occur to these devices that are given to them for school use. So those are the major changes. And this is the language that we're working with the other 2 school districts as well, 33 and Madawaska.
I don't understand some of this. I'm never a fan of mandatory fees, so I'm not a fan of mandatory fees, so I need a lot of. You're gonna have to convince me that this is important, because you say here this coverage will not include willful intentional damage. So why do I need to pay insurance for this if I have to give you a $100 deductible if I make any sort of damage? So why do you need insurance at all if I have to give you $100 if I do something wrong?
The $40 is insuring, we've been doing this since day 1 of the Milton program, which is now our 18th, finishing 18th year, right? The $40 is just to give them the ability to take it home. Because at that time, we weren't taking them home. Now, with remote, most likely they'll be taking them home. It's just to help cover some of the expenses that the technology department has to incur when the devices are not covered under warranty.
So what's the $100 deductible then that a student has to pay?
If you damage a laptop, and if it's water damage, most likely it is a total loss. So we're just asking you to pay $100 towards a $500 or whatever the device is.
Okay.
If you have a broken screen, a kid might leave their earbuds into the keyboard and they close it, it's gonna damage either the hinge
Okay.
or you're gonna crack the screen. We're just asking you to give us $100.
Yeah, I understand the 100 makes sense. I don't understand the $40 per student. I think that's a little ridiculous.
It's to build up the self-insurance, because we're self-insured as a district.
And that's, you're right, that's what I was getting to.
So it's to build up that pot of money to repair the machine.
Don't they pay property taxes to cover self-insurance?
Well, I think, I think it's some amount of buy-in is probably not a bad idea, as long as everyone can afford it. I mean, my only issue, the thing I'd like to see different, I'm not with you, Jake, and usually I'm left with you, but, I've heard from parents, and I think having parent emails, so when notices go out to students that you broke your computer, you need to pay this or else, I think we should have parents' emails on file too.
And we do.
So that way they go out immediately.
Yeah. So, along with what Toby is talking about that's going to be implemented this year is that all the parents have access to Parent Portal and Power School, whether they know it or not, or whether they access it or not. And part of that is they're going to see their son or daughter's bill. They're going to see what's owed to the school, the damages. And like Mrs. Sidor said, the $40 is to help build up our self-insurance because we're asking $140 of that damaged device when that device is going to cost the technology department close to $300. So I have to pay the difference.
I think that's the cost of doing business myself, because if we go to remote learning
So-
and you have to, 1 second please.
Yes.
If you have to do remote learning,
You've made your point.
yeah, you're gonna
My
force
point-
them to bring devices home though.
So I think one of the things that we're talking about, Giselle and I had the conversation is, so maybe for a family that does not want to afford the $40, because, you know, we do have people that are not a fan of fees for no reason, they're not getting this device, which is an $1,100 device. They might be getting a Chromebook, which is a $200 device, because it's a gamble for the district to send this without nothing in return. You know, it's a huge gamble. And when we have 10 students that are abusing that, now we're $10,000 in the hole. You know, so maybe using different devices for those who can't or don't want to pay versus those that do.
The only reason I say that for this year is we're gonna have a percentage of students are have to work remotely, right? And so we're gonna force them to have to pay a fee because they have to work remotely, to use a device to do their work that they have to do for the school year.
I hear you, Jake.
So
I
that's
understand where you're
a
coming from.
concern
And that
for
was a
me.
question that was asked too. What do we do with that?
Yeah.
And how do we
It's
handle
like
that?
the internet, right? Are you gonna pay for my internet because I have to learn remotely? Because I don't have internet, all of a sudden I have to buy internet because my son has to learn remotely?
But
I
you're
mean-
choosing remotely, you don't have to.
No, but if it happens where we move and you have to, so when I see these fees, I don't like them. But if the board can vote, of course, and do what you wish.
How much in the self-insurance? How much in the pot?
You're taking in 20 to 25,000 a year. If you use $40 per 500 kids, or however many.
We also use those funds to do replenishment.
Okay, yeah.
So those funds are also used to, like, if a student, if a student, nothing covered under warranty, we use those funds. So if your cat eats through your AC adapter cord, that's not covered under warranty, but you need the AC adapter to charge your device. So I use some of those monies to purchase that adapter, which could be up to $50.
After the $100 deductible? Or do you charge them $100?
We charge them the $50. No. We'll charge them the $50, whatever the cost is. And I try to buy things in bulk so it drives the price down.
So you're charging $50 to replace something that a damage that the same cost is.
Charging $50 is what?
So if they break something that's $50, you're charging them $50. Correct?
Is what it costs me to
And
replace
think of
it.
it as car insurance. You don't have a choice to buy car insurance, but it's nothing that we need.
I think though, if we go to a situation where everybody has to do remote, I think we should look to that pool and have a talk about it then. To your point, if we have to go remote, everybody has to take a computer home. I think this fund, we may have to maybe look at some of the other COVID funds and restructure where this is going. I think, but I don't think we're there yet, Jake.
No, that's okay. I'm not a fan of fees.
And that's what, this year, when we sent devices home, we didn't charge anyone.
No.
You know, the only people that got charged are the traditional students that always get charged, are 7 through 12 students with the option of taking their devices home right from day one.
Anne Marie, how many of those devices were returned damaged this summer?
I can tell you that at the elementary level, we had 245 devices that went home, and we had 20 that came back damaged, and of those 20 that came back, 2 were a total loss. At the high school,
Okay, excuse me one second. How does that compare with a normal year? Normal year, they would be taking them home at the elementary school level,
that's
right?
correct. That's correct. And the only reason why those were damaged is because the students took the cases off, the laptops, while they were at home. Okay? And at the high school, I don't have the exact numbers off the top of my head, but I found that there were more damages than they would normally if they were in school with it.
Wow.
Because we had some students that were not allowed to take devices home because mom or dad did not want them to go home for whatever reason, that actually went home. They came back damaged. Okay? Just to give you an idea, when we did our inspection here at the high school, I had, this is where this came from, and I went to see Steve and John, I had a 15,000 plus bill of damages at the high school, and I'm saying 7 to 12 only, since they went home and came back.
You know, I'm okay with the, initially I wasn't okay with the second incident deductible and the increasing deductible to $200. I thought maybe there's a disciplinary approach we could take there, but if we're doing remote learning, throw that out of consideration. But the last sentence is really what bothers me, is if the damage is caused by wear and tear and is not the student's fault, they would pay the regular price of $100. Now, we all know these chargers and cords over time, over the years, you wrap them up, put them in your case, whatever, after a while, plastic dry rots, cracks, wire insulation gets exposed, and whatever that. So I really don't see where, you know, how are you gonna judge that it was normal wear and tear, not abuse?
So, I don't judge. So the process is we call Apple or whoever our tech person, the manufacturer that's gonna be repairing it. By all means, I try to do everything in my power to avoid the student having to pay anything or parent paying anything.
Sure.
So I try to make sure I get the manufacturer to cover it as much as possible.
Correct me if I'm wrong, Henry, the most common damage is water damage.
Oh, yes, and that's, I had that on my note here, that if we're talking that the kids have to bring water bottles in, I've had at the elementary level, and even here, kids with that water bottle spillage, and it's a total loss. It is a total loss to a laptop with water damage, because the logic board has to be
I
replaced.
mean, that's outside of normal wear and tear, though.
Yes.
You know, that's, I'm referring to wear and tear.
Would the student
I
be
don't
required
I don't want our students being charged for a 5-year-old MacBook that is just
Yeah, the
sees
keys pop
out.
four
Oh, right.
kids before him
Yeah,
pounding
yeah.
away
Totally
at the keys,
understood.
and all of a sudden, Mom and Dad, the keys are just popping off the keyboard. I mean, chances are it's not gonna happen, right? But things do happen.
It has
And I just-
happened, and we have not charged students for replacement
Okay.
of the keyboards, no.
Very good. So I don't think that
I
last
s-
sentence really needs to be there. I don't
Okay.
know.
I do see all of the repairs that, that go to, and if I see a bill that comes in that I feel that the student should not have to pay, I have that conversation with admin, you know? But, and that's where the self-insurance helps out, because I have to figure out where I'm gonna get the money to replace that device or fix that device.
So you don't make money with our
Oh
laptops?
goodness, no.
Okay.
No, I do not make money, and that's not the purpose of this, is to make money. It's just to cover the technology that the students are using.
So, you're thinking you'd like to remove the normal wear and tear one, Keith?
I definitely, I mean, there's a bunch of parents around this table, I don't know how you feel about getting informed like this at home, but when I see that my child might incur a bill for something that wasn't his fault, I have an issue with that.
I'd make a motion to approve this with deleting that line.
Moved by Sarah.
Second.
Any further discussion?
If we have to go to all remote learning, I'd like to revisit it.
We will.
All those in favor? School lunch prices?
School lunch prices, every year we do the price equity tool to find out if we need to adjust school lunch prices. This year, we only have one adjustment that's necessary. Our elementary regular lunch was $2.35 last year. It needs to be adjusted to $2.50 per that price equity recommendation.
So moved.
Moved by Cody.
Second by Barry. Any discussion? All those in favor? Unanimous.
Thank you.
Employee Assistance Program.
This was mentioned earlier. We feel that it's going to be essential that our employees, not only our teachers, but all employees have additional supports this year. And although we have school-based employees that we typically have relied on from time to time as employees, our school-based service providers are going to be maxed out this year. Some remote learners, some not. Kids coming in with all kinds of we don't even know because of what happened in the spring. So our social workers, our guidance counselors, their time is just going to need to be dedicated to students. So in the conversations with our health advisory, we felt that an employee assistance program, which a lot of companies do offer to their employees, is something that would be a real benefit for our employees, where they could access services through, in this idea here would be Northern Maine Medical Center, access services through them, and then have X amount of visits that they're allowed per year, and the district would cover the cost that, correct me if I'm wrong, Peter, that the insurance would not cover, like the deductible and the copay, so that our folks have somebody they can reach out to. We don't have the agreement yet. It's being worked on, but I wanted your permission to pursue this and have this as something I can take to you hopefully next time as an approval.
So moved.
Second.
Per, Keith?
Any discussion?
Just make sure that we have a cost amount.
And this would be covered under CARES funds because it's directly related to COVID-19, so it would be something we would use our CRF funds for.
Yeah, I'd like to, I mean, if you're coming back to the contract, I mean, as long as we get to review the contract, I have no issue with negotiating.
It won't be a contract. What we will have is an agreement that so it won't be a service contract per se. Our employees will be able to be referred and make a self-referred behavioral health unit at Northern Maine, or the Behavioral Health Services Department at Northern Maine Medical. They will work with the employee's insurer, or they'll work, with the employee's insurer. So in our case, it'll be our district health plan. Whatever the insurer doesn't cover for those services, we would look at covering for a limited number of visits. Like, for example, at Northern Maine Medical Center, whatever their employee group health plan doesn't cover, the hospital will cover the first 3 visits. Okay? And then after that, the employee's insurance and...
Peter, will there be language to that agreement? I know it's not a contract.
That's the language that we have now in email exchanges. So, but they're not looking at a necessary, this would not be a fee-for-service contract.
Well, I guess my question is then, and I'm sorry to get a motion in a second, I guess I don't understand why it would be with NMMC instead of just something like with our unions that we have, saying that we will agree to pay, you bring to your whatever unit or whatever you have, your first 3 co-pays, and the district will cover it. Do we need to enter into a relationship with another entity to do this, or does it have to be exclusive to NMMC?
It does not have to be exclusive to NMCC, but what we want is a provider who will extend the priority commitment to our, the priority commitment to our employees as a result of COVID-19, okay? And in this case, if we have an employee who is physically affected by contracting the virus and is also dealing with the emotional and mental health fallout that comes from that, then we're in a position to provide wraparound services with very easy conferencing between health providers that are in the same facility.
Well, I understand that, but I just don't, I guess it seems overly complex. Whereas we could just agree with our unions to pay for their copay on their first 3 COVID-related, if they get something from their provider saying this is a COVID-related EAP issue, and we just reimburse them from our COVID funds. I guess my question is, wouldn't that in some ways be simpler to just work with the unions and say, here, we're offering this to your employees?
Oh, does your insurance allow you access to whomever you want to use? Right, the EAP would give you that added flexibility, correct? Having an EAP set up? So you could access NM at Northern Maine Medical Center's practitioners, right?
We won't obligate our employees to go to Northern Maine Medical Center, but we will have a formal working arrangement with them, and there will be fees waived. We don't know, like right now, if AMHC or Fish River Rural Health. We know we're talking to AMHC about student supports, additional student supports, because we know that our social workers aren't going to be able to handle that because their caseloads are already full. So we've begun discussions with them. I just don't have anything concrete at this point with them, but they're willing to work with us and with them.
I think it may not be a contract plan, but I'd like to see the arrangement.
Oh,
at
absolutely.
the next board meeting.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll formalize that, and we'll have an idea of the numbers of employees who think that they might need those services. So that'll help us ballpark the cost.
So we move on to the next one, because we're not going to, so I gotta need to know more information.
Are we all explore?
It's explore.
No, but to approve the exploration.
Oh,
It says exploration, it doesn't say it's finite.
We have a motion by Kerr and second by Keith, correct?
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
When I shared this with you, I labeled this item district floating substitutes. I'd like to change the language of that for you now to temporary support personnel. Thank you, because it's going to be more than just a substitute teacher. As I explained to you earlier, we're going to need folks floating around and helping out in many ways, and we truly feel that with the CRF funds that we have, we can guarantee employment. I would ask our substitutes first because they're familiar with our schools and they're familiar with our students. I would be asking them first, but to consider employment at least till the end of this calendar year. So that's why it's called temporary. And then we can look, if it's something that needs to continue beyond that, we can look at it. I also had Sharon look into carry forward funds in title money, which we have a lot of because we didn't expend everything last year beyond March. And this year's title funds, we're not going to be doing a whole lot of traveling for PD, we know that. So Sharon was able to actually secure another position with title funds. So in addition to CRF funds, we can fund a position in title funds. And I think the ask from you all is to allow us to have 3, definitely one for each building, but then a second one, an additional one that can assist where the needs are most on any given day. And for this position, we would offer the same wages we offer our substitute teachers, so if they qualify for the $90, $95, or $100 rate based on where they fall, that would be their pay. We would not offer health insurance because we don't to our substitute teachers, but for this position we would offer some personal leave, and I think we had discussed one personal leave because it's half the year, and then some sick days as well, because we're asking them to be on the job every day as that temporary support person.
So moved.
I think it's an awesome idea.
Thank you.
And I would like to give you additional flexibility. I mean, I don't want you to come back to us in a month and say we need another one. I mean, do you want to say 4 and then, I'm just curious. I don't want this year to be something that I wish we had another
meeting
person.
next
I have a feeling I'm going to be coming back every time saying we need more, just
Okay.
because I think we might need more custodians. I don't know how many students are coming yet, so I don't want to make that leap yet. I definitely know that we're going to need some support personnel like this to manage it. So, yeah, if you guys want to approve 2 for each building, that would be.
I say we start with Ben and we leave.
I'll follow your lead, Ben. I want to make sure you have the flexibility you
Do
need.
you have a
please.
second?
Second, yeah.
Any further discussion? All those in favor? Unanimous.
Thank you.
Next meeting date.
When do we want to meet next? I was going to propose the 17th, that was original, but if you guys want to meet next week, definitely can do that as well. The only,
Will we have any survey results next week, so
if we're later in the week, we might have some good survey data. If you don't mind waiting till Monday, the 17th, that's, I mean, it's a couple days over a week.
I'm not here that week.
Oh.
How about the Thursday?
Thursday,
Thursday.
the
Of next week.
13th.
I think it's important that we meet more often, just so that we can keep people informed.
Thursday the 13th.
Would I be interested to hear about what, like,
Yes.
if the teachers come back and say, we have all sorts of stuff we need to talk about?
Yep.
I don't want to wait until the day class starts.
So I'm thinking just a couple agenda items
Yeah,
specific
That's
to
right.
the plan.
Half an hour
right?
meetings.
I don't think we should meet about any, like, on these, like, new
Yes.
weekly meetings. I think we should try to limit it as much as possible
Yep.
to COVID.
Really great.
Specific to the plan, right?
Yes.
Yep. Okay, and unless there's an emergency thing I'll talk to Gary about, and then, we'll add those type of things, but. Okay, 13th and 6 o'clock, still good?
Sure.
Okay, I'll make sure you guys get a calendar invite.
And
No, not AM.
declaration and computation of votes.
Does somebody out there have a script to read?
Yeah.
There's nothing.
You have a script? You're not typing yet. What was the date? July 27th? Is that today's date or the July 27th date?
Lucy?
The computation and declaration of votes dated July 27 and attached hereto be approved. Further voted that the computation and declaration of votes be entered upon the records of the Maine School Administrative District number 27. Further voted that a certified copy of the computation and declaration of votes be sent to each municipal clerks within the district.
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor? Unanimous.
And we need signatures on those, right? Yeah. So we're gonna get signatures on those?
Is this the one where we have to sign on a specific line, Lucy?
Leave your names on it. Your names on the line. And there's only one copy, so you don't have to sign it.
There's no names.
Come and see.
You can sign any one.
Excellent. I'm signing number 1.
You sign mine.
Ah.
Thank you, guys.
It's the same thing we have here. You're all set.
Matter what line I sign on?
Okay, excellent, Vanna. You make an excellent Vanna.
Yeah.
Who's Vanna?
Ben and White.
Oh, it is?
I'm old enough to remember
So,
that.
I don't know if you remember Jake,
she's still
a few emails
ran the show
ago
the other day.
advocating that our students and staff make a promise
Oh.
to the UMFA, so that's something Mr. Doucette worked on
Very awesome.
as a, you know, a sign of good faith for, you know, adhering to what we're asking them to do.
That line's already taken.
Gary? Stop talking.
This is an additional one?
I don't think we need that one.
We don't need this one?
We already signed it.
Pen hardly works this time of day, usually in the morning.
Nice.
6 inches.
Hanging in there? Yeah. Trying to. I wanted to hang out when our school started. Getting a college right now. Shoot, that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to invite Matt Moore here.
That's it for put.
I want to know what college wants to do, because some parents are worried about all the college students coming in.
Yeah.
Peter?
We'll talk tomorrow about
But they're doing really good. People are presenting their rules. Like, they have a whole house, a COVID house, so if they, any firm case, you can go to a house. Stay there. Yeah.
Is it, I imagine all okay?
Oh, I should've.
No, it should,
Because that's what I would expect.
no, it's
That's it.
the Brown House.
The Brown House.
It's a smart idea.
It is.
Gary, do you need a motion?
For executive session?
Yes? Motion to go into executive session?
Second?
All those in favor?